Okay, let's go ahead and do this. I haven't done a GM video in a while, and Stan Bowman's one that I get a lot of comments on, and I've seen a lot of comments made about him. And Stan Bowman's a guy who's in a tricky spot. So he inherits a team from Dale Tallon. How? We'll get to that. First off, Stan Bowman's the son of Scotty, and in July of 2009, he replaced he replaced GM Dale Tallon. He was actually named after the Stanley Cup. So Stan Bowman is Stanley Bowman Stanley Cup. Anyways, that's not his full name. Wouldn't that be great, though? My name's Stanley Cup Bowman. Really? Yeah, sadly. He took over after the late qualifying offers by the Hawks. So you have a deadline where you can send in qualifying offers for restricted free agents. If you miss that deadline, those restricted free agents are eligible for unrestricted free agency. All of the blame was taken by Dale Tallon. And Hawks fans will tell you it wasn't Dale Tallon who was late making offers. He made the offers in time. They weren't sent out in time. But Tallon took the blame, and ownership said fine, and they demoted Bowman. They demoted Tallon, and they gave Bowman the job as GM. And that's a tough way to take over. At the time, I believe it was Martin Havlat that was quoted as saying some bad things about management and saying everybody in that locker room is for Dale. They're Dale's people. Dale Tallon, a very popular GM with the team, and he would leave a year later to go and take over in Florida. And of course, it's been just smooth sailing for Dale Tallon in Florida. He hasn't had the exact same problem for different reasons. Tallon's snake bit because he's actually a good GM, but anyways, this isn't the Dale Tallon video. This is the Stan Bowman video, but this is the problem. He gets overshadowed by Bowman. So let's start out looking at the UFA record, unrestricted free agents, and I stuck to either swarms of free agents or big names, and really honestly there haven't been a ton. July 1st, 2009, a week and a half before he takes over, Marian Hossa is signed to a big contract by Dale Tallon that everybody thought was awesome. Well, not really. There were a lot of us that said, well, Hossa's not going to play that long. And he didn't. So that contract gets moved out this past week, and it's part of the reason this video's up. But Hossa got signed by Tallon. That wasn't Bowman's contract. July 1st of 2011, 2 years later, they signed 4 guys. They signed Jamal Mayers, Sean O'Donnell, Andrew Burnett, and Dan Carcillo. And part of the reason that they had to do this is because they kept losing depth due to cap concerns. Now, Hawks fans will tell you the cap concerns originate with the way that Bowman does things, but I think it really started with the restricted free agencies that took place in 2009, and I think from then on, Chicago's been kind of fighting against a cap crunch. July 1st, 2014, so 3 years later, they signed Brad Richards. Richards being a key signing because he went there for cheap. He went there to win a cup, and he did. He won a Stanley Cup with the Chicago Blackhawks. July 1st, 2016, they signed Brian Campbell. Campbell comes back to Chicago. And Chicago's kind of been stuck doing this getting the band back together thing a few times now. Because in 2017, they brought back Patrick Sharp. They brought in Jordan Osterley as a unrestricted free agent from Edmonton. Jean-Francois Berube came in as a number 3 goaltender. And Tommy Wingles, who ended up being a rental at the deadline to the Boston Bruins. So a lot of names for 2 out of the free agent seasons that I show here. But those names, none of them really became key guys. And I think that's where it gets tricky on July 1st. You can look at a team and say, well, you know, they added all these pieces. It looks like they're going to be good. And definitely, July 1st of 2017, with all the moves the Hawks made, it looked like they could very well be a contender. I was picking them to be a contender. I said, well, Sharp wasn't very good for Dallas, but he can bounce back in Chicago, sure. Now, anytime I talk about a GM, I talk about their drafting record. And the drafting record that Stan Bowman has it's not bad considering they haven't had a really top-notch prospect. They haven't had a top 5 prospect or draft pick. 2010, he drafts Kevin Hayes at 24. Of course, Kevin Hayes goes on and plays with the Rangers. 2011, he drafts Mark McNeil at 18. McNeil still struggling to find his way into an NHL arena regularly. But at 18, it's hit and miss. At 26, Philip Deneau, who is playing a top 6 role with the Montreal Canadiens. Adam Clendenning at 36, who he turned into Gustav Forsling. Brendan Saad at 43, who left and came back. 139, Andrew Shaw. So that's a pretty good draft pick late in the draft. 2012, he gets Teuvo Teravainen at 18. So not bad again at 18. Vinny Hinostroza at 169, and he just left the team a couple days ago, of course. 2013, he drafts Ryan Hartman at 30. Hartman has now gone to Nashville. John Hayden at 74. Is Hayden ever going to be a full-time NHLer? We're still waiting on that, too. He has shown tremendous potential at times, but it's been inconsistent. 2014, at 20th, he drafts Nick Schmaltz. Schmaltz is an excellent forward, and I think most Hawks fans will agree with me on that, and anybody who disagrees, I'd love to know why. And he drafted Dylan Sakura at 178, and of course Sakura could very well be a key player for them going forward, starting as soon as this fall. 2015, no draft picks that are on the team, but they didn't have their first pick until 54th, and that was Graham Knott. And I remember when they drafted Graham Knott, he seemed like a bit of a reach. At best, he's bottom 6 in the NHL. I haven't heard a whole lot about him lately, but I didn't see anything worth throwing up on the board. 2016, of course, at 39, he drafts Alex DeBrincat. DeBrincat being a draft pick that they picked up, and he's been a pretty good player for them so far in his career. It's just 1 year, but he's been pretty solid. 2017 and 2018, they've gone with defensemen. So when we talk about the Hawks, we're going to talk about their blue line and how it's kind of eroded. But Stan Bowman's aware of this, and he's looked at defense. At picks 29 and 57 in 2017, and at picks 8 and 27, that's 4 defensemen drafted with their first 4 picks in 2 drafts. So twice each draft, they've gone with defensemen first. Now let's get into moves made by Bowman, because this is where it gets tricky. His first trade is September 5th, 2009. They traded away the number 32 pick to the Toronto Maple Leafs, which became Jared Knight, in exchange for the number 43 pick, Brandon Saad, and the number 69 pick, Michael Paliota. I'll go ahead and give him a win on this one. Calgary acquires Aaron Johnson for Kyle Greentree, October 7th, 2009. That's a draw because it's just a draw. Cam Barker is acquired by the Minnesota Wild in exchange for Kim Johnson and Nick Leddy. That's a win because Nick Leddy's a pretty good player. Darryl Boyle and Joe Fallon are acquired by St. Louis in exchange for Danny Richmond and Hannu Toivonen. I'll go ahead and go with a draw on that one. Future considerations to Anaheim for Nick Boynton. Draw. Boynton didn't add that spark really to the Hawks. I mean, they did win the Cup that year, which is kind of a spark. June 23rd, 2010, so right after winning a Stanley Cup. And, you know, this is part of the problem with the restricted free agent thing. Dustin Byfuglien ended up being cut out. They grabbed Joey Crabb, Jeremy Morin, Marty Reisner. First-round pick that became Kevin Hayes. Second-round pick that became Justin Hall. And in exchange, they lost Akim Aliu, Dustin Byfuglien, Ben Eager, and Brent Sopel. Now, at the time they make this trade, Jeremy Morin looked like he was going to be an excellent player in the NHL. I remember there was some talk about, wow, the Hawks are a good team, and now they got good and young by picking up Morin. This is excellent. Kevin Hayes was highly sought after as well, but because Hayes didn't end up being a guy who featured at all with the Hawks, and because of the fact that Byfuglien is still patrolling the blue line for Winnipeg as a fantastic player, I have to give Bowman the loss. Sorry. Oilers require Colin Fraser from Chicago for Mirko Hoffman. Yeah, that's a draw. They then acquired second-round pick Ludwig Rensfeld, second-round pick Kent Simpson for a first-round pick going to the Islanders, and that first-round pick's Brock Nelson. So for Brock Nelson, I'll say that's a loss. I know Islanders fans are going to be like, it is? Yeah. Jimmy Hayes ends up being traded to Chicago for second-round pick Bradley Ross. Oddly enough, I'm not a huge Jimmy Hayes fan, but that's a win. They then acquire a 7th round pick for a 7th round pick, but the 7th round pick that goes to Boston became Zach Trotman. So I'll make that a draw. I'll be nice. Trotman did end up playing in the NHL, but 7th round, it's so hit and miss. The Toronto Maple Leafs acquire Bill Sweat and Chris Versteeg for Chris DiDomenico, Philip Paradis, and Victor Stahlberg. This one's tough because, of course, Sweat didn't play for Toronto. Versteeg was not, some big hero for Toronto, but I don't know that I'm going to give Stahlberg. I'll go with a draw on that one too. I know that seems like I'm lacking courage. Ivan Vishnevsky and Adam Clendenning, a 2nd round pick to Chicago for Andrew Ladd to the Thrashers. I'll go with a loss on that one because Andrew Ladd for Winnipeg wasn't bad for a while there, right? Jeff Tafe acquired by the Blackhawks on July 22nd of 2010 for Marty Reisner. That's a draw. Michael Frolik and Alexander Salak acquired on February 10th, 2011 for Hugh Jessamine, David Pecan, and Jack Skilly going to Florida. I'll give that one a win because of Frolik. So that's a win for the Hawks. February 28th, 2011, Chris Campoli and a conditional 7th round pick, which wasn't used, for Ryan Potulny, and a 2011 2nd round pick. So Xavier Ouellette, which ended up going somewhere else. It's really hard to pick a winner in that, really. So I'll give that one a draw. They acquired Olish from Chicago for Campbell. That's a loss. Olish never did become the player he was supposed to be. And that's not on Bowman, but still. 1st round pick acquired by Chicago, which became Philip Deneau for Troy Brouwer going to Washington. I know Brouwer isn't highly thought of right now by Calgary fans, but that's kind of a loss, even though a 1st rounder for Brouwer seemed like a really high price. But Deneau, not for Brouwer. Thomas Kopechki acquired by Florida for a conditional 7th pick. We'll go with the draw on that one because that conditional was never used. Rights to Steve Monador for a 7th round pick. That's not a win or a loss on that one. David Taves acquired by the Hawks for future considerations. Neither a win or a loss because David Taves never played for Chicago that I remember. Rob Klinkhammer acquired by the Senators for a conditional 7th round pick. Again, these are all minor deals, right? Brendan Morrison acquired by Chicago for Brian Connolly. Draw on that one. Morrison, at the time he was traded there in 2012, had kind of lost a step or two. Matt Fornatero for Brandon Siegel. Yeah, draw there too. Johnny Oduya from the Winnipeg Jets for a 2nd round pick and a 3rd round pick. I'll give Chicago the win on that one, even though I wasn't a huge fan of Oduya, because Oduya did play a role in them winning the Stanley Cup in 2013. John Scott acquired by the Rangers for a 5th round pick in 2012. We'll give that one a draw. John Scott would be back. 7th round pick and a 4th round pick for a 4th round pick, and none of them played in the NHL. So that's a draw. That's with San Jose. 7th round pick to Calgary for Henrik Karlsson. Henrik Karlsson was a guy that I thought was going to be an NHLer, and then I was just sort of wrong about that. Peter LeBlanc for future considerations. Nothing there. Michael Handzus acquired by Chicago for a 4th round pick. Again, much the same. Philip Paradis for Kirill Godovets. Nope, that's a draw. Maxime Sauvé for Rob Flick. See how this works? You have so many deals, and guys are like, you should talk about these trades. And I was thinking about these sort of deals when that happens. Michael Frolik for John Hayden and Luke Johnson. That was a June 30th, 2013 deal. Frolik, that's a tough one. I'll go with the draw just because sometimes being a coward is the best way out. Dave Bolland acquired by Toronto for Carl Dahlstrom, Frederick Bergvik, and a 2014 4th round pick. I'll go with the draw on that one because while Bolland going to Toronto was seen as a big deal for Toronto at the time, it was. He was kind of a broken player. Carcillo on July 16th traded to the LA Kings for a conditional draft pick. Take a wash on that one. Chris Versteeg and Philip Lefebvre acquired by the Hawks for Jimmy Hayes and Dylan Olsen. I'll give them a win on this one because Versteeg, of course, did play a role for that team on multiple occasions. They traded out Kyle Beach on December 6th of 2013 for Brandon Mashinter. Draw on that one. Kyle Beach was a weird one. I remember when Cody Hodgson was drafted by the Canucks, there were a lot of people who were like, we need Kyle Beach. Nope. Kyle Beach didn't make the NHL. Peter Regan and Pierre-Marc Bouchard acquired from the Islanders for a 4th-round pick. That was seen as a steal by Chicago at the time, that Bouchard could re-find his game, and Regan was a decent depth guy, and it just didn't work out. Bouchard was kind of a broken guy at that point. Brandon Peary acquired by the Florida Panthers for a 5th-round and 3rd-round pick in 2014. Well, yeah, I'll go with a loss on this one. These are tough, though. There's no really big, massive deals here. March 4th, 2014, Matthew Brisebois, David Rundblad for a 2nd-round pick to Arizona. That seems like a steep price for a 2nd-round pick, doesn't it? To pick up those two guys. Brandon Bolig for a 3rd-round pick. Bolig in Calgary, you know what? I'll go with the draw on that one. Nick Leddy acquired by the Islanders for Kent Simpson, TJ Brennan, Ville Polka, and Anders Nilsson. That's a loss. And I haven't had like a big acquisition or a big loss yet. Although I will say, I'll go ahead and put this up here. Nick Leddy to the Islanders feels like kind of a big loss for them. Tim Erickson comes to the Hawks for Jeremy Morin. Remember I mentioned Jeremy Morin as being a key guy and it didn't work out. Neither did Erickson. January 29th, 2015, Adam Clendening goes to the Canucks for Gustav Forsling. It was a mistake by the Canucks, so that's a win right there. The other one, Erickson for Morin, I'll make that a draw because neither of them ended up being, the key guy. Spencer Abbott for TJ Brennan. Yeah, that's a draw as well. Kimmo Timonen for a conditional 2nd-round pick or conditional 4th-round pick and a 2nd-round pick. This is where it's tricky. Seems like a steep price to pay, but they won the Cup that year. So I'll give them the win for picking up Kimmo Timonen. Antoine Vermette for Klaus Dahlbeck and a 2015 1st-round pick. This one I'm going to give a draw, and I'll explain why. So Vermette comes in and helps the Hawks win, and then goes back to Arizona. So Arizona won on this one too, and got the 1st-round draft pick. So it's a tough call on this one, but I'll go ahead and give them the draw. Ben Smith in a conditional 7th to San Jose for Andrew Desjardins. No, I'll go with draw just because Desjardins. Anyways, it's a draw. Ryan Haggerty for Antti Ranta. I know they had reasons for trading Ranta, but it's still a loss. That is a big loss. Brendan Saad, Alex Broadhurst, and Michael Paliota traded to Columbus in exchange for Marco Dano, Artem Anisimov, Corey Tropp. Jeremy Morin comes back again, and a 4th-round pick. That's a tough one. Because you can look at Saad and say, well, that's a loss, but I could also point out that Anisimov has been pretty decent for Chicago. So I'm going to go ahead and take the coward's way out. Anders Nilsson acquired from Chicago for Liam Coughlin. I'll give that one a draw because Nilsson never really hit in Edmonton either. Patrick Sharp and Stephen Johns acquired by Dallas for Trevor Daley and Ryan Garbett. That's kind of a loss in that Sharp never really got his game going entirely in Dallas, but he had the one good year. And Daley, it just didn't work with Chicago. And Johns is still a player in Dallas, so I'll give Dallas the win on that one. They traded Chris Versteeg, Joachim Nordstrom, and a 3rd-round pick for Robertson, Massey, and a 5th-round pick. I'm sorry, that's got to go as a loss as well. Rob Scuderi acquired by Chicago for Trevor Daley. That's a loss because Daley did end up helping the Penguins win. So they lose a trade where they get Daley, and then they lose the trade where they lose Daley. They acquired Richard Panik from Toronto for Jeremy Morin, so Morin leaves again. But Panik, that's a win. And I know Hawks fans are going to be like, well, we didn't like him, but you know what? He was fine that first year. Ryan Garbutt acquired by Anaheim for Yuri Seacash. And I'll just go ahead and make that just a draw. Big trade. Chicago acquires Andrew Ladd, Jay Harrison, Matt Fraser. If they had won the Stanley Cup, then it would have been a first-round pick that they lost to Winnipeg from 2018. So Winnipeg gets Marco Dano, a 2016 first-round pick, and a 2018 third-round pick. It's a lot to give up. Ladd ends up going, of course, as a free agent to the Islanders, so I'll go ahead and qualify that one as a loss. Next page. Christian Ehrhoff acquired by the Hawks for Rob Scuderi. Picking up Ehrhoff's a mistake. Dale Weiss and Thomas Fleischman for Philip Deneau and a second-round pick. Well, Weiss is no longer with the Hawks. Fleischman, yeah, that's a loss. I will admit, losses when I see them. Tim Jackman and a seventh-round pick for Corey Trop. That's a draw. Dennis Robertson for Drew McIntyre. No difference maker there. Brian Bickle and Teuvo Teravainen to Carolina for a second-round pick in 2016. And a 2017 third-round pick. That second-round pick was not DeBrincat as far as I know. So because that second-round pick wasn't DeBrincat, they lost Teravainen. Teravainen would be a very useful top nine forward for them. It's tough, but I'm going to have to give Bowman the loss on that one. Andrew Shaw acquired by Montreal for 2016, two second-round picks. One of them became DeBrincat, so we'll give the win to Stan Bowman on that one. And I'll even put up here because he fell. He fell in the 2016 draft. He fell into the second round, and honestly, Bowman was smart for picking him up. That was a brilliant move. Cam Schelling from Michael Latta. Draw. Thomas Yurko for a 2017 third-round pick. As far as I know, that's a draw unless that third-round pick becomes somebody big. Johnny Oduya from Mark McNeil and a conditional fourth-round pick. Well, McNeil didn't really hit with the Stars, but they didn't really miss Oduya either. So I'm not declaring a winner there. Sam Carrick and Spencer Abbott acquired by Anaheim for Kenton Helgeson and a 2019 seventh-rounder. Sam Carrick, yeah, no, we're good. That's a draw. Scott Darling to Carolina for a third-round pick in 2017. Now, remember, Darling was going to be an unrestricted free agent. So the fact they got anything, I'll go ahead and leave that as a draw. Jalmerson for Laurent Dauphin and Connor Murphy. I know they had to work around the cap, but Dauphin and Connor Murphy, it just hasn't been an upgrade on Jalmerson. I have to give him a loss on that one. I just have to. Artemi Panarin, Tyler Mott, and a 2017 sixth-round pick for Brandon Saad, Anton Forsberg, and a fifth-round pick in 2018. Again, they wanted to have financial certainty with Panarin. This is why Chicago got rid of him. But Panarin is a better player than Saad. That's how it is. So I have to go ahead and give it a loss. Marcus Kruger for future considerations. That's a draw. Kruger, of course, didn't stay in Vegas. Kyle Bond for Andreas Mortensen. That's kind of a draw at that point. Richard Panik and Laurent Dauphin. So Dauphin goes back to Arizona for Anthony Duclair and Adam Clendening. Well, Clendening and Duclair, they're both gone out of Chicago. Panik's actually been pretty good for Arizona. Got off to a rough start with Chicago, but that to me is a loss. And Ville Polka for Chris DiDomenico. That doesn't look like either right now. Michael Kempney for a third-round pick in 2018. Now, I don't know what that 2018 third-round pick's going to be, but Kempney's turned out to be a pretty darn decent player for Washington. Tommy Wingles for a conditional fifth-round pick. draw on that one. Ryan Hartman and a 5th-round pick for Victor Edsel, a 1st-round pick in 2018 and a 4th-round pick in 2018. I'm giving Bowman the win on that one because Hartman hasn't really turned out to be the kind of player that I think he was envisioned to be when he was drafted in the 1st round. So what does that leave his record at? It's 11 wins, 20 losses, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 45 of them that'll consider draws. The one big loss is Letty. Big win is DeBrincat. The trades that he loses are just, they're small losses. They're not big ones. And part of the reason why he's forced to lose these trades is because of cap issues they've had. Both Taves and Kane make $10.5 million a year. And while at the time those contracts are signed, they're completely justifiable. These guys were just the best top 2 forwards of almost any team in the league. You could argue that top 2 forwards, there's a few teams that may be ahead of them. There's that Ovechkin-Backstrom combination in Washington. But Chicago's kind of been a victim of their own success. At the time that Bowman comes in 2009, it is a team in turmoil because he's replacing the very popular Dale Tallon. They get to the Stanley Cup in 2010, 2013, and 2015. And the argument you can have is he got 3 Stanley Cups or he's traded his way away from other Stanley Cups. They missed the playoffs this past season. They were swept in the 1st round the year before. Is Chicago going in the right direction? It really depends who you ask. But I do think Bowman came in under some difficult circumstances. I think he's done well at the draft table for the most part. Guys like Schmaltz and DeBrincat that have fallen down, and he's managed to pick them up. I think his free agent signings have been kind of all over the place. And I agree. They've kind of been all over the place. He has tried to bring in players that were Hawks before to try to rekindle something that they haven't been able to do the last few years. But that's not that unusual. I watched Edmonton do that. I watched the Rangers do that. I watched Detroit. There are teams that will try to rekindle it. Let's do it again. And it can be really, really difficult. Sometimes you are a victim of your own success. Some of the losses they suffered, like Nick Leddy's the one that really stands out. Again, it's, well, you're at the cap. Dustin Byfuglien's another one. You're at the cap. But some GMs find a way around it, Steve Yzerman. And how much of it involved the late qualifying offers in 2009? How much did that put Stan Bowman behind the 8 ball before he even got into the job? That's the question. So whether these trades that he lost here are due to cap concerns or whatever they are, there's still losses on the trade table. And we'll see if they can bounce back, and if some of their current prospects, and if Corey Crawford can return to health being a key thing, if these things all work out in their favor and they get back in the playoffs, he'll be seen as a better GM. If they miss the playoffs again, he could end up finding himself out of work. I think the odds of that are slim, to be completely honest. But we'll see what happens. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about Stan Bowman. I would say that the 3 Stanley Cups, for me, kind of overrule this record. And again, you guys can let me know in the comment section below which ones you see as bigger wins or which ones you see as bigger losses. That's fine too. I do think he's lost more than he's won, but when you've got 3 Stanley Cups, and when one of those cups is 6 years after you took over for Dale Tallon, you can kind of take that he's riding Dale Tallon's coattails and kind of push that to the side. The 2015 Cup is all him, in my eyes anyways, because he knew who to keep and who to get rid of. 2010, yeah, you can give that to Dale Tallon. I have no problem with that whatsoever. 2013, maybe half and half, but 2015 for me is Stan Bowman's. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, though. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and this has been my best attempt at summarizing the career of Dale Tallon. Stan Bowman. And that's the problem. He is seen as playing in the shadow of what Dale Tallon built. But he's his own man, and Bowman is slightly younger than me. So, kudos to him for being able to do this at a relatively young age for GMs, at least before these kids like Chayka and Dubas started up. Tell you, these kids these days, these young whippersnappers, All right. So again, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.